wonderful Danny Grant. And for those of you who don't know Danny, I think we all know DATS. So, one or the other, it's him. Danny's going to talk to us today about the landing. Danny is a CSPA learning facilitator. He's a CSPA Coach 3 as well. And this is amongst many other things that he holds. So Danny, without further delay, I'm going to actually pass it off to you.
Okay, thanks, Allison. The first thing I'm going to address is how far back in Facebook did you go to find that photo?
I creeped just a little bit.
Yeah, understatement. Anyways. All right, guys, I feel a little over-prepared, but not really. I just threw this together. So I'm going to talk about landing. You're going to hear a bunch of stuff that you've already heard before, because the whole point of everything leading up to your landing really gets you to the point of getting to the ground safely. So Allison already introduced me, so we'll skip this one. The goal of what we're talking about right now is make your computer work. No. We want to walk away from the skydive. All the preparation, being in the plane, getting out safely, going through free fall, getting under canopy, flying a good pattern. Honestly, this is the point. Right at landing, that's where we determine whether or not we're getting ready for the next load. I'm going to steal a bit of Allison's thunder here, because I'm sure she's going to bring these up. Incidents per year in CSPA, this yellow line is landing incidents per year. It goes up and down year to year, generally based on the number of skydives that are being done. But you can see that landing incidents are number one. In terms of experienced skydivers, we're talking basically half of all incidents for an experienced skydiver are happening on landing. That first 12,000 feet of the skydive are fine. It's the final inch that hurts the most. And trust me, I've been there. Okay, so we're going to talk about three very basic things, man. 10 minutes is not enough. We could do a whole seminar on this, so I'm just going to go through the gist of it. Landing techniques, landing patterns, and some common problems and the basic solutions. So the landing. Keep in mind that your skydive is not over until you have started packing. Just because your feet are on the ground doesn't mean you are safe and out of the ballpark. So techniques, I like to think about the top 4 keys when landing a parachute. And I didn't come up with this. I learned this from far more experienced people out there. Your number one priority when landing your parachute must be a level wing. Number 2, hopefully you are in a clear area. Number 3, you got the choice of going full speed or slowing down. So I suggest flaring. And man, if you got the opportunity to set yourself up for it, land into the winds, okay? What we're talking about here is level wing. When it comes to landing, you don't want to be turning. We are situated underneath our parachute. The second we begin rotating our canopy, we're no longer underneath it, and it is not set up in a fashion to put us down softly. Clear area. You got to choose this early. This is not something to make a last minute decision on. Clearly landing in a road just north of the drop zone because you're a silly wingsuiter, not the best thing in the world, but make that choice early. You don't want to be 50 feet above the trees realizing you're not going to clear them. When we're talking about flaring, at least halfway, depending on things like wind conditions, obstacles, other things happening around you. If you've got the opportunity, because your wing is level, your landing area is clear, get at least halfway. Get ready to PLF if you've got to. Slow yourself down. It'll hurt just a little less. And finally, if you've got those first 3 things, land into the wind. Again, this comes with choosing early. You don't want to be that guy at 50 feet above the ground, seeing the windsock pointing this way while you fly this way, going, no, I got to go this way, because that breaks rule number 1, level wing. If you got to land crosswind or downwind or somewhere in between, do it. Okay, so a lot of this is planning early. It's landing patterns. It's all about making decisions well ahead of the point of panic. Okay, choose early. Have a jump plan. Plan the jump, jump the plan. Monica talked to us about freeboarding. You know, your landing is drawn out for you well before you ever have gear on, or at least it should be. Understand where the winds are going, what other things are on the plane, whereabouts you should be getting out, what you're doing on the skydive. Are we going vertical down the tube, or are we silly men in dresses going out over the water? And what is your pattern going to look like? On the way to altitude, Pete talked about it, visualizing, thinking about your skydive, anticipating what's going to come up. Whether you're in the 182, the 206, the Skyvan, or any other plane, spot. And I'm not saying, stand in the back of the Skyvan, look down and try and yell at Rovic, telling him he's fucked it up. No, he ain't going to do anything. It's look down and realize where you are and make your decisions from there. You always have the opportunity to not go, but if you are going, know where you're going from. And finally, confirm your plan. You're at a free fall, you've had a nice break off, you're under canopy, there's no immediate canopy collisions happening. Confirm that your plan is going to work. Are you where you expect it to be? Is your pattern going to work for you? Do you have to make adjustments? And finally, once you are under canopy, safe, getting yourself back to your landing area, be predictable. Don't be that guy spiraling down through the pattern, screwing us all up. We have limited communication up there, and if we're all staring at you trying to figure out what the hell you're doing, you're not making anyone else's skydive safer. Sure, we've all seen this image here. I've stolen it from Brian Germain, because man, you want to learn something about skydiving, talk to that man for 5 minutes or 5 hours. You will learn something. It's very common. Have a plan set up, whether you're flying a 270, a tandem canopy, or a Leia 69. You need to have a pattern in your mind and understand what it means. Okay, understanding what the weather is doing at all different altitudes of your skydive and your canopy flight. All of us are taught the left-hand pattern, depending on your drop zone, might be the right-hand pattern. Understand your local rules, but we're always taught the box pattern. You've got to understand, though, that when we turn canopies, we do not fly perfect squares. It is physically impossible. We fly big, looping, curving turns. So be aware of what your canopy does through the air and how the wind adjusts it. I'm not going to go into these ones in detail because that's a whole other seminar of its own. If you've got questions, talk to your coaches. All right, when we're talking landing patterns and landing areas, realize your space. For those of you at SVI, man, when that field is cleared out, you've got miles of landing area. Just because the center of the field is right there doesn't mean that's where you must set yourself up. If awkward situations arise, you can use the entire field. There's a secondary landing area. And as I showed in a previous photo, around up here, got a nice little road. Not really utilized all that much. Great. Lots of tools out there. Utilize them. Learn from them. Talk to your DZO. Talk to your safety officer. Talk to your coaches. Gather the information. One of my favorite ones here, spot assist. I know, going back to spotting, on a day like this morning, as long as my aircraft is somewhere in this blue circle, I'm making it back to the landing area. In the red circle, I'm going to have to fight and use all the tools in my bucket under canopy, but I'll probably make it back to the landing area. Don't discount the information that's out there. Huh, okay, that was a lot. Let's talk about problems and solutions. I'm clearly not going to talk about every landing problem out there because there's a lot of them. I'm going to touch on the basics here. Canopy collision. Ben gave us the basics of it. Be ready for it. Man, at breakoff, no one is your friend. Assume everyone is trying to kill you. So plan ahead. You want to stop a canopy collision? Plan a good skydive, plan a good breakoff, and execute. Be ready for your traffic. Your canopy is out, your head's on a swivel. You are expecting canopies to be coming at you. Be ready for it. It's not just on opening that canopy collisions happen. And the most dangerous ones are in the landing pattern. Fly predictable. I'll be blunt. Don't be that asshole. Flying left, right, all around, doing spirals. Because if I can't figure out where you're going, if I'm above or behind you, I'm going to have a hard time avoiding you. Go ahead and type canopy collision in YouTube and scare yourself shitless because it's not fun. Be predictable. If you are that good safe skydiver flying predictably, like Ben said, we are always head on a swivel. We don't have turning signals. We have almost no levels of communication. Don't trust anyone. Man, I like most of you. Not kidding. You're all pretty good. But head on a swivel. Be aware of who is around you and always assume that there is someone you can't see. And keep in mind right of way, okay? People who are lower than you, students, tandems, reserves, less maneuverable canopies. These people have right of way. Yeah, we want to get to the ground. We want to start packing. Man, if it's the boogie and we're racing that bus, we are rushing. But don't rush your skydive at the expense of yours or anyone else's safety. Huh. All right, obstacles. These happen. SVI, you got plenty of them. Trees, buildings, roads, power lines, you name it. And those are just the ones near the landing area. The best thing to do with obstacles, is plan ahead. Know where they are, know what they are, know how to avoid them. The best way to avoid an obstacle is just to make it not a question. If you're dealing with an obstacle on landing, I'm going to bet that somewhere previously in the skydive, something fell apart. Don't let that happen. Thinking back to our 4 keys, if I'm going to hit a building or a tree, still want that level win. I still want a clear area, but the fact that I'm hitting a building, nah, we already screwed that one up. I got the choice. I'm going to hit the side of that huge facility at SVI, either at full speed, 30, 35 miles an hour, or I'm going to slow myself down as much as possible to minimize the bruising. This face stays pretty with effort. And of course, wind. But again, if you're dealing with obstacles, either wind is not important because you're already hitting it, or wind brought you there. Keeping in mind, landing far away from the drop zone, like that north road or the fields even further beyond that, versus trying to land close, you got to weigh your pros and cons. If you've got to land further away from the drop zone so that you can have a clear area and not deal with obstacles, tall trees causing rotors, buildings, fences, power lines, the highway, go far away. Man, if you got to walk, if you got to find a payphone, if those still exist, if you got to, hitchhike your way back to the drop zone, do it. It's not worth taking chances. And if you do, for some reason, got to hit something one day, think about protecting yourself. One of our options is to flare at least halfway, use your body, use your big muscle, turn them towards the building, the tree, whatever it is, and let them take it. All the soft, squishy bits are in here. They're not so fun when they hit stuff. Okay, high winds. Whew. High winds suck. Of course, my first comment here is plan ahead. If the winds are above your license level, don't get in the plane. Back to Monaco. If you're not ready, if you're not prepared, if conditions aren't not good, don't do it. But of course, weather's unpredictable and winds may come up when you least expect it. You're gonna have to deal with it. You might be landing out, you might be dealing with obstacles. You know that stuff. When it comes to landing, especially if you've got those big canopies, I'm talking to you people there on the 190 pluses, man, those things suck in high wind. Your priorities are collapsing the wing. Drop a toggle, grab the other one, pull it down till you got fabric. If that's not enough, get in behind the wing so that the wind is blowing the wing into your body. If your wing cannot inflate, it cannot drag you away. Okay, going back to the idea of planning ahead. Your head's on a swivel when you're under canopy. You're looking for traffic around you. You're looking at wind indicators throughout your canopy level, whether it's tall trees, low clouds, And also at the ground, do you got a tetrahedron? Do you have windsocks? Do you have streamers? Have other people already landed and indicated what the winds are doing? Adjust your pattern as necessary. Go back through Brian Germain's figures. When we've got really low wind, we can have really big patterns because our canopies can travel much further and be less affected. If we've got high winds, our patterns start shrinking up because we get much less penetration. And think about your flare timing. You're flying into the wind because you've already got the level wing, a clear area, you're ready to flare. High wind will help slow down your canopy. You may not need that full big flare. You may only need part of it. This knowledge only comes with practice and experience. One of the biggest hints I can provide to anyone out there is, regardless of the conditions, regardless of who's jumping, if you're on the ground near the landing zone, go watch people land. Watch the swoopers, watch the students, watch the tandem instructors, watch all the recreational jumpers, watch everyone in between in all weather conditions. Watch how those conditions change how people react, noting who did well, who did not so well. Put that in your memory bank. Be ready to use it in the future. I'm getting parched. A favorite of mine, jousting. When we're running the 206 and the 182, it's usually not a huge issue because there's not many people and there's a ton of space depending on your drop zone. So what do you know? First thing, plan ahead before you're even in the plane or on the shuttle. What are the winds doing? What is the agreed upon pattern? Which way are we going to land? What are the local rules? Is it one of those drop zones that just says first down sets the pattern and let's go? Or is everyone playing by their own rules and following the wind indicators? Know what's kosher. If you're not sure, ask and discuss. It changes drop zone to drop zone. Use all the space. You can tell I got a little lazy here. I don't have as many pictures that would be useful, but man, SVI in particular, that huge field is just in fact huge. If you don't like the pattern that was set and you think everyone is going downwind and eating shit and you want nothing to do with it, land away from them. A perfect example for those of us who have been down to Skydive, Arizona. You don't like what's happening in the landing area, go land in the desert. You'll land safely. No one will ever give you slack for that. And commit. Again, level wing above your head is number one. If you are finding yourself in a jousting situation, you're not trying to 180 out of it. Flat turns, you remember those? Make whatever adjustments you need to avoid direct collision, but commit to your line when you're on fire. Again, back to plan ahead. Check the indicators. Be aware of what's happening around you and below you. Don't force yourself into a position where you have to make a last-minute decision. And adjust your pattern as necessary. If you don't like what's happening, go find a new space. Oh, other jumpers landing. Back to one of my first comments. Your skydive is not over until you are packing your parachute or paying someone else to do it. Just because you're on the ground doesn't mean that everyone else is. Clearly, when we're jumping small planes, that's pretty easy to figure out. But when we got the Skyvan out, that's a lot of freaking canopies. Your feet are on the ground, your stuff is picked up, your head is still on a swivel. Where are the assholes around you who don't care that you're there and are just coming through, or they've got something else on their mind, or who knows what? Be aware of everything that's happening around you. Go back to when you were 5 years old, being taught to look left, look right, crossing the street. Oh, hard landings. This one hits home a lot, and there's really not a lot to tell you about it, but focus on what you're doing and flare. When you're on final, that last 50 feet of altitude, you've got one job, and it's put your feet on the ground softly. If you're not going to put them down softly, you know, you've committed to the downwind, you're stuck with it, Flare as well as you can, feet and knees together, prepare to eat shit. I'll tell you this now, you'll walk away from basically every PLF. You might be bruised, you might be a bit broken, man, you might be embarrassed, but you should walk away from it. Okay, high performance landings. Again, this is a seminar on its own, but I'm probably already over time. So I'm going to tell you this honestly. I love my 79. I love my swooping 450 skimming along the ground. And I will tell you right now that every high performance landing is absolutely unnecessary. If you're ever getting into it, if you're ever setting up for it, if you're ever planning to do it, I want you to ask yourself why. Why am I swooping? We've all got our reasons, and you have to decide whether the additional risk is worth it. I know we like to say safety third because it sounds funny, but man, that is the biggest lie we ever tell ourselves. Safety is first. Get coaching. Talk to the experienced coaches out there. Talk to the competition swoopers. Go take the Flight One courses. Go get the one-on-one training. And when you're done that, go get more coaching. It is really the dumbest thing in our sport is swooping. We have perfectly good parachutes and we're plummeting ourselves towards the ground to look cool. All right, you're committed to it. You're swooping. You're going to do it. You love it. You're like me. It's just great. Always have a plan B, and that's plan fail. If you're setting up for your high performance landing and you don't have it in your head, 1, 2, 3 plans to exit that turn, bail out, level out, and land somewhere else, looking and feeling like a fool, then you're not ready to do that turn. Just because you're skydiving doesn't mean you get to swoop. That is just an add-on. It's like dessert at the end of the meal. If you were good through the day, you get it. But if something happens, you might not get it, which comes back to plan ahead. You really have to be aware of the canopies around you, the wind conditions. Where are you going to be in the pattern? What is going to be happening in the sky? Sorry, I'm preaching, but fuck it. Do the hop and pops. If you want to swoop, go do a skydive for the swoop. That's simple. Remembering that high performance landing isn't the only part of it. It also means high performance flight. Everything else we've talked about to this point is the same. It's just faster and it's more dangerous. The high performance landing also means the chance for high performance problems. You have to prepare yourself for that. And the only way to do that is practice with coaching. Okay. Big red words, your swoop isn't worth anyone's safety. If you're making the argument that, oh, my canopy needs a big 450 turn to land safely, then you don't know how to fly your canopy and you need to go get coaching. Bring this up. Canopy collisions, planning ahead, knowing traffic, fly predictable, head on a swivel, understand right of way. These still remain for high performance landings. All right, closing points. I don't care if you got 10 jumps or 10,000 jumps or more or less, get coaching. Man, if you're the guy who's out there watching everyone land, you're learning. If you know someone's on the ground who has experience and the ability to coach you, go ahead and ask, hey, can you watch me land? If it's on video, great. If it's not on video and they can still give you pointers, still great. And plan ahead. The landing is the end of the skydive, but it starts from the beginning of your skydive. It is part of your jump plan. And you're not done till you're back there. All right, I could keep going, but I'm just ranting. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everyone. And I'll pass it back to you.
Well, Danny, thank you so very much. I don't know what just happened to my screen. That was really weird. So yeah, huge. Thank you. I'm absorbing a lot of that in. Paige, I see a question from you. So this is question time. If anyone has questions, go ahead, Paige.
Hey, Danny. Something I've kind of wondered for a while. What's your opinion on when you're opening, we talked about emergency and possible canopy collisions. I've always been taught and always practice as you're opening, hands towards your rears in case you need to steer away. But then, if you talk to somebody about, turns on opening, they're like, oh, relax your body, just, be limp. Well, if you're limp, you don't have your hands near your rears in order to avoid if you have a possible collision possibility on opening. What's your opinion on this?
It's my favorite phrase, and it makes no sense. You need to be actively relaxed. Okay. Again, we're skydiving. Every part of our skydive, we need to be mentally activated. We need to be completely aware of everything happening around us. And our body has to be prepared for that too. But to your comment that, we get people talking like, oh, when I open, I always turn right. Oh, I'm sure Brian could give us a whole other lecture about things that we're doing with our gear that could be causing that. It could be our body. We don't know unless we actually get the coaching. Get someone to watch your opening. Go do a high pull with a coach, videoing and watching. Are you doing something with your body? Or is something happening with the gear? It's all guessing and hearsay until you get yourself evidence. So, which is it? Am I hands up, tensed and ready, or am I relaxing and letting it happen? You got to figure out what is actually occurring. You have to be actively relaxed. Wingsuiters know it. You need to be relaxed in the suit and just let it fly, but you're in control and don't let it do anything that you don't want it to do. The opening of your canopy is the same. My personal point of view is I fly the opening. I'm relaxed. I've pitched. I've got enough jumps on my canopy that when it's opening well, I feel it and I know it and I don't make the adjustments. If I feel something funky happening, I've learned I've got enough jumps on my canopies that I know that I can make those adjustments to correct it. If I got to get my hands up and make the big adjustment, I'm ready for it. It comes with experience. And if something is happening, get coaching, get the outside point of view. I see the comment here, right turns always. And that's what we teach as an SSE, as I'm going through the solo all the way to the decomp discussions. The conversation begins changing. So, everyone, if you've got an imminent canopy collision coming, it's right hand on the right riser, start turning. Anyone under BCOP, plug your ears for a moment, but BCOP and up, you're smarter than that. You're more aware than that. If you've got a canopy collision coming, it's hands up, ready to go, look right, is it safe? Turn. If right is just another canopy collision, look left, go. Make the safe decision. But that conversation changes with the level of the skydiver. So, was that a good answer, Paige? No. But actively relax. If something is happening, get the evidence to figure out what is wrong. Don't just guess. But yes, a relaxed body position generally means we're not putting input into the canopy and inducing a turn. But the gear could still do other things. I'll let Brian discuss that over beers another day.
Awesome. Perfect. I don't see any other questions, and I know time is going. I was basing on a small DC canopy avoidance. I'm an old chicken shit. I see that. Not that you're a chicken shit, Heather. I'm not saying that. But yeah, definitely. I know some people have that conversation around lots of canopies in the air, not so many. And yeah, it's not always a straight answer depending on experience and stuff too. So Danny, I think you answered it as best you can. Thank you